So if we're about 24 hours before the possession day of your new property, and by the way, that term needs to be in the contract. If it's not in the contract, you may not get access to the properties. It's very important, another very important part of the terms of a contract, because the seller is not under any legal obligation to allow you back into the property after all conditions have been waived and you've done your inspection. So if the term is there, they'll let us into the property. And I want to make something clear though. This is not another inspection, and there are some rules around this. You don't have the ability to bring just anybody to this as well without permission. It is still the seller's property. They own it still. Until we've paid for it, you don't own it. So I've seen people want to bring family members and have a big gathering. I actually had one couple literally brought extended family. There was about 16 people that pulled up and all wanted to come to the walkthrough. We have to get written permission from the seller to do that. I also have seen buyers show up with an inspector as well. And again, that has to have written permission because it is a walkthrough, meaning we're there to verify that it's simply in substantially the same condition when you bought it. Now you can do things like make sure the stove is working, make sure the dishwasher, the washer and dryer are working, make sure the fridge is cold, because according to the terms of the contract, all of these should be in normal working order. You can even turn on the furnace, make sure it's working, there's no weird noises, just so that nothing went wrong from the day that we did our inspection to the day that we take possession. If we do uncover a problem, maybe I've seen things like they scratch the floor on the way out, or for whatever reason a burner on the stove isn't working, we then can call the lawyer and try to negotiate something with the seller. It's a negotiation. There's no black and white answer to this. I've seen situations where we were able to withhold some money. I've seen us agree on getting a technician in at the seller's expense. So there's solutions within this. So I have been on obviously a lot of walkthroughs, and most of them go really well. But one of the biggest challenges is cleanliness. Oh my goodness, the buyer expects clean, and I get it. I would too. Everyone has a different level, and you got to be aware of that. We've even written on contracts that the seller will have it professionally cleaned and provide a receipt from a professional cleaning company. And we walked in, it was still not at the level of clean that my buyer expected, and that was disappointing. So be aware of this. If you are a super clean person, you may want to have cleaners ready for coming in the day that we actually get the keys and start cleaning for you, so that you can feel better about the level of cleanliness that you would expect. It's a very good point to consider. Now, let's just say everything went great. We did the walkthrough and we're satisfied with that. So the following morning, what'll happen is your lawyer, which is we call the buyer's lawyer, would then send the funds. So if you're getting mortgage financing, those funds come to your lawyer's trust, and then your lawyer then advances those funds over to the seller's lawyer's trust. And on the contract, it clearly states noon for possession, and that's why it's noon in the province of Alberta, is because the money needs to move over in the morning. It generally gives us enough time for the money to get to the seller's lawyer, and we can get the keys at noon. I can tell you about, I'd say 50 to 60% of the time, you'll get the keys between 10 and 11 a.m. But there's always a but. Possession day comes, and maybe we find out that there's a problem with the real property report. We discover that maybe the seller didn't get one done, or maybe there was an encroachment after they did get one done. I've seen real property reports show up at the 11th hour, and we have a minor encroachment. These sorts of things now have to be worked out between your lawyer and the seller's lawyer. And these things can delay the noon deadline. I've also seen situations where the buyer forgot to get insurance. It's very clear on when mortgages send money, there are conditions that the lawyer has to meet before they can advance those funds. One of them is insurance. The lender wants, what if the house burns down? They want to know that there's insurance to pay for the house and get it rebuilt. After all, the lender is a partner with you on this, giving you the money. And I've seen buyers sometimes forget to do that, and they're scrambling the morning of, and of course it causes a delay, and sometimes the noon hour happens and possession doesn't. Now, we have provisions on our contract because we know that there's a lot of common issues at closing. A lot of things come up. I can tell you 99% of them are solvable issues, but there is that 1% that can sometimes still even completely collapse a deal. It's rare, but it can happen. This is why communication with your real estate professional and your lawyer before we go to the possession day is really important, so that we've really been able to create an experience where everything goes smooth, because it's a lot better to be aware of potential issues before you get to possession day. I can tell you most of the issues land on the buying side that cause delays, but there are sometimes sellers that can cause delays too. We had one time a seller that took off on a vacation, didn't think to meet with their lawyer and get all the documents signed, and they were on a cruise, and we needed their signature before we could take possession of the house. That was kind of crazy that they did that, but we were able to negotiate what we call a tenancy at will, where the buyer now is a tenant. Money didn't transfer, the deal didn't actually close, but the buyer still got possession of the property. So you can see there's all kinds of solutions that the real estate agents put their heads together, the two lawyers put their heads together, and usually these issues get solved. But I just want to prepare you, it can be a stressful day, that possession day at noon, until you actually get that message that the keys are releasable and that the property is yours. Until that actually comes through, you're probably going to feel a little bit anxious, but don't worry. When you have an experienced agent that has seen all these things happen before, we can find these solutions. And again, it goes back to why who you work with really makes a big difference, because I can tell you there's been times even I had to do some out-of-the-box thinking on some issues, and not even the lawyers thought about that one, and I came up with that idea. So it's a collaborative effort. That's why I said the real estate agents and the lawyers all work together in conjunction with the buyers and the sellers to come up with some of these resolutions. Then you get that nice text message or the phone call saying the keys are releasable, and that's the moment that you get the keys. And the first thing that I would do if it were me is I'd probably change the locks. And that's just me, not everybody does, but I kind of take the approach, you don't always know who has the keys. We don't know who the previous owner gave them to, so to me it's a good practice to be changing the locks and just know that those locks are just yours. And at that point, hey, it's a big congratulations. The journey is over. We are now at the finish line. You have the keys to your new home, you own it, and you can start moving in. Now, something else to make really clear, because there can be challenges, because that noon hour deadline isn't always accurate, I do not recommend having movers show up the day of possession. I highly recommend that you should have movers come the following day. And I also highly recommend don't close on a Friday, because if there is an issue that goes into the next day, it's pretty frustrating if it's Monday before we can deal with it. And so closing on a Wednesday or a Tuesday gives you a little bit of breathing room so that you can still get into the property if there happens to be a delay. And but I've seen too many times where the movers are sitting around waiting, can't get into the property, and the buyer's stressing because they're paying the movers all this cost. So don't let that happen to you. But I will tell you this, we are very good at getting to the finish line. A lot of experience behind this to overcome all of the obstacles and hurdles that we're going to be faced with. That's what makes valuable as real estate professionals, is to find those properties and overcome everything and get to that finish line. You get the ability of having somebody more or less hold your hand all the way through, taking the journey. And it's so important to have that when you've got that experience behind you. When I started this business, I would have never guessed in my wildest dreams how many fires that real estate agents have to put out to get to the finish. But it's an important part of what we do. We take some stressful situations that we get into in this business and smooth it out and get there. So I hope this video and these steps have been really helpful to you. And as always, reach out to us with questions. I would invite you to book an appointment with us. Take some time. There's so much more that I can teach you. I went through some of the highlights in this video, but there is an ample amount of more information that you can get. In fact, I even wrote a book on it. It's in my website. And I think if you read that book, you'll even learn a whole lot more. And I'll wish you all the best in your journey to find the right home.